All right, so it's day of quarantine. I honestly don't remember at this point. But Mother's Day is about 2 weeks away, and you can't really get something shipped to the house, and I can't really sneak out to buy a gift to be able to get Cynthia something nice. So I decided I'm going to be making something. She has been getting a lot more into cooking over the past couple of weeks as we've been getting through quarantine. It's really been great. She's awesome at it, but she's had no place to keep the iPad or cookbooks or printouts or anything else like that. And since I'm confined to the garage and have nothing but a bunch of wood to work with there, I'm going to take this piece of walnut and make a nice recipe book / iPad stand using only what I already have in the house and a little bit of luck. I started by trimming off both of the rough edges of the piece of walnut on the table saw. They both had the factory marks and weren't very clean. From there, I went to the miter saw to cut them to their near final dimensions. All of these are over-dimensioned slightly, so I have tolerances for error just in case something goes wrong along the way. And I was doing this all while the CNC was in the background making dual vaults. Those are coming along nicely, and there's a video on that coming very soon, so make sure to keep an eye out for that too. I then ran a few strips of the walnut from the other half of the board that had this large cut in it that I couldn't use right away, but we're going to turn into something else that we're going to need later. And now that I've cut everything, let's talk a little bit about the design, because it probably doesn't make sense from all of these Lego pieces right here. The idea is to have this primary be the board that's supporting the back of the iPad and or the cookbook that we're working with. This is going to be a lip that we attach to the front. I know it's too long. There's hopefully a method to my madness. So this is going to be the lip that we attach it to, and we're going to trim off a small piece of this, rotate it upward to have a upward facing lip as well. So you have something that'll actually hold the thing in place. This strip right here is going to work with us to make this all work. The idea being that we will trim this down and make it a little bit better. We're not just dealing with square blocks, and hinge it to the back of the book holder, and then as it hinges, it'll be able to hit in certain stop gaps at certain heights to be able to hold the book that we're working with. So it can hold it at practically a 22-degree angle, or here, or just about vertical. I have the hinges from the DM screens that I make, and I have a couple spare pieces in case things go wrong. I think I should be okay. This probably wasn't the most efficient way to cut all of this, and I'm sure at this point I've already done something wrong that somebody's gonna say something about in the comments. But at the same time, you work with what you got right now, and this is what I got, and I've never made something like this before, so it's a learning process. From there, it was sandwiching a few of the pieces through the planer to get them down to their final dimensions and to also make sure that they're perfectly square, and then cutting them into thin strips on the table saw to get them exactly to the size that we wanted. So I have all of the parts that I'm going to be working with to assemble this, but I don't want to just make something that's super generic. I want to make something that feels personal, that feels like this belongs to her. So I have that, but considering this is going to be in a kitchen, I don't want to make grooves and carves where food or liquids could potentially get stuck. But I do own a laser engraver. Now it's time for Lightburn, which is the program I use for my laser engraving tutorials. If you want to know more about this program, I have a video explicitly on how to use it that's going to pop up in the top right-hand corner. But the short version is I made a design in Photoshop and then carried it over to instructions that the laser could use. I then set up my piece of stock on the laser engraver down in my basement office and set up to go running. Once I started the program though, I heard the sound that you never want to hear when you're running a CNC. I was worried about that. So this machine doesn't have the largest workable range. However, I don't really have all of the software and hardware to fully configure my Shapeoko to also work as a laser engraver. So using the 3018 CNCs, which if you've watched my channel, you know are problematic to say the best, but downright frustrating to say the worst. I've been able to pretty much fix it using that L bracket and a small black Sharpie dot to center it to make sure I'm always carving from the same machine position, because it doesn't have homing switches and I can't use relative or actual machine positions for most of these carves. I'm gonna have to remove that bracket, remove my safety net, and try this again carving raw. That's scary. I pulled off one of the ends of the L bracket, trying to hold the other in almost an identical position so that I'm only losing fidelity on one axis and not the other. I then set a laser at a 1% and manually adjusted the threaded rods to get it to the correct dimensions to center the laser on the board. I also updated the job to operate out of the center, and once I ran the test orbit, everything looked good. What happened next was a 1 hour long engraving session, which doesn't look too good on video, but seeing this just come into being looks absolutely fantastic. This is exactly what I was hoping for. It came out beautifully. Ow, I just whacked myself in the face with this board. It's a little off center because I did my math wrong on dividing by 2. I'm about ½ an inch off, but that's easy because we can just cut a little ½ an inch off of this side. I was over dimensioned anyway, so it works out kind of beautifully. Now to go upstairs and assemble what we got. I cut off the extra little bit of the cookbook stand on one edge, which meant that I also had to dimension down the 2 stretchers, which are going to be going across the front to hold the iPad in place. I really need to build a crosscut sled. This was actually pretty dangerous. Okay, back to the quarantine hacks, because I don't have everything I need, unfortunately. I have a couple screws, which are just odds and ends from other things or other projects, scraps around the house. But all of these are long enough that I'd be slightly concerned of the overall long-term stability of the project. I have these, which are very small and therefore very prone to not working and not being good enough. So I have these 2 screws, which are painted red because I have no idea where they came from. And they're 1-inch simple Phillips head screws. I am very close on my margins here, so I'm gonna have to drill a bit of a pilot hole to make sure that this all works, and also hope that I can do this and not have this break, because I have very few parts of this walnut left. I'm nervous. Wish me luck. Now we're about to learn a lesson about doing fine woodworking. Trying to drill in and install hardware within a millimeter at best of the edge of a piece of walnut is a bad idea. And in this small set of clips, you're watching me go through all 5 stages of grief. What I really should have done to put this all together was use wood glue. Okay, so I changed my mind. I am gonna smooth everything over with sandpaper, because at this point, I think the power tool approach is messing with me. I'm on a tight timetable and I don't have margin for errors on this. So I'm gonna smooth this all over by hand with just a block with some sandpaper on it, so 120 grit sandpaper. And then instead of attempting to screw that together with hardwood, I'm just gonna go with good old fashioned wood glue and glue the thing together, because that is far more consistent, reliable, and does not really have the same potential for failure. So let's grab all the clamps that I own and head back over here, do it the old-fashioned wood glue way, and then we might put some nails in for structural rigidity a little bit later, just to be sure, but I think wood glue, properly clamped, secured, should be enough. I hope. I mean, it's only holding an iPad or a book, so it shouldn't be too bad on weight, and I've already made enough mistakes. I do not have the margins to break this again. Fingers crossed. So you get a nice bead of wood glue across the entire dimension of the 2 pieces of wood you want to join together, and then use all the clamps that you possibly have to be able to secure them. It takes about 24 hours to fully cure and dry, so 1 sleep later, we're back the next day removing all the clamps and getting to sanding. I'm sanding for a couple different reasons. 1, to get rid of any excess squeeze out or glue that is now squeezed out of the area and would look awful. 2, the boards weren't perfectly aligned, so I'm sanding and manually sanding instead of power sanding to to A, avoid more power sanding problems because I'd lose this board if it were gone, and B, to make sure that all the boards line up nicely. Once that's done, I take the arm that the cookbook stand will balance off of and drill pilot holes, securing the hinge in place with the included hardware. I then go to the place where I've already previously marked on the actual board itself, drill the same pilot holes, and attach the arm.
It always seems like I come to the kitchen to do final tests on stuff. I did it for the cable holder as well. Now, shh, everybody's asleep upstairs. It is really late at night, like 11 o'clock late at night, because I needed to work on this while everyone was asleep because it's a gift, it's a surprise. I've installed the arm and some small rubber feet, 4 on the bottom of the main body, 2 on the bottom of the lever arm. Now, there's a small range where it's not super effective. It'll fall. But if you put the arm at least vertical, it holds its own weight just fine. And then you can pivot all the way back to maybe about there before it would slide under its own weight, and then just a small bit until it catches itself at this near horizontal position. Now that's just under its own weight, so let's pop it up here. And this is the first time I'm putting anything into it. And I'm using real world testing. I've been loving this cookbook. And this one, just look at that. Those wings look amazing. Absolutely fantastic. We're gonna just leave it at this page. Pop that in, and yeah, that works. Let's test a couple different angles. Okay, so there's a small bit between where friction is still effective at about this angle and the maximum distance for the whole thing where it can't hold the weight of a heavier book, but it would probably hold the iPad. Now, we can probably make that better by using some better rubber feet here. I have some slightly stickier and round design, so there's more consistent contact points with the underlying table. But without putting it on a notched leg and having to worry about this dual hinging system and CNC machining the whole thing, I eliminate another potential point of failure, and I give a lot of freedom between here and here, or here and here and here and here and here and here, composed to like 5 notches, which you would get if I were to CNC out something. So I think we're gonna move on to a little bit more sanding with a finer grain sandpaper, then finishing, and then we're done.
From here, it's finishing time. This is the shot that everybody loves, but I don't have the best camera angle of this, so Glamour Shots.
I'm so happy with this. I'm really proud of this for just a couple scraps that I had sitting around the house and a little bit of ingenuity. This is hopefully gonna be a very nice gift. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating would be super appreciated. Leave a like and a comment down in the comments section. Let me know what you think about this project, or if you wanna see me take on anything else as far as some woodworking projects or some other stuff. I have a cool dice vault video coming very soon, as well as a couple more dice making tutorials for new inclusions, and another woodworking home improvement DIY project that should be pretty cool. All right, until next time, go out there, be good to each other, and I'll see you around.